I'm, and this meeting is being recorded. Um, well, I'm going to pass it off. She's joining us on Zoom today, so let's get started.
Wonderful. Hello and good morning, everyone. I'm sorry I didn't have the opportunity to join you all in person. I've been following this conference online and it just looks absolutely phenomenal. And I'm hoping next year I could be there in person. But in the meantime, I'm very happy to have this chance to take the next 20 minutes or so to go over some ways of perhaps that we could design some meaningful animal assisted experiences. And that's not to say that you're not doing it now, but this is kind of just a 40,000-foot overview that might help you in any additional programs that you're going to be funding in the near future. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, let's get started. Here's the boring stuff. Just a little bit about me. I have, for the last 20 years, worked for a nonprofit educational farm in northeastern Pennsylvania, and it's called the Lands at Hillside Farms. And there's the website there if you're interested in checking it out later. So we are a 438 acre nonprofit educational dairy farm. So the whole idea is we were created to teach healthy, better life choices. This is all about sustainability, and this is all about the One Health type of philosophy. So what I primarily do at Hillside Farms is oversee project management and funding of the care farming program, as well as the animal welfare piece. And that's why I'm thrilled to be talking with you today. I'm a member of the Green Care Advisory Board, Massachusetts Department of Health. We work with care farms specifically for children and young adults who are either using or at risk of using substances. I'm also a farm animal welfare auditor for A Greener World, which is a really cool side gig. And most recently, I was appointed managing editor for the American Psychological Association's Human Animal Interaction Net newsletter. And that is something free you can join if you want to get involved with human animal interaction kind of on a broader level as it relates to psychology. I highly encourage you to join. I have a master's in animal welfare, animal behavior from Penn Vet. And I also have a master's in organizational management from Misericordia University. That's enough about me. Let's get into the good stuff. Again, Hillside Farms, 438 acre nonprofit educational dairy farm. So we provide a variety of farm-based services for vulnerable children, including education, job training, life skills, and trauma and therapy services. So what we're going to do over the next 20 minutes is just talk about the potential benefits of incorporating animals in farm-based activities and therapy sessions. We're going to talk about the ethical and safety considerations when we're including farm animals into our sessions, and then explore methods to determine if an animal is the right fit for your care farming program. Animals are not one size fits all. Sometimes you really need to take a step back and tweak the animal selection to see if it's best for you. Now, all of the photos in this presentation are from my home base, Hillside Farms, and they're all used with permission. Briefly, if you are not familiar with the term animal assisted intervention, it's a real thing. It is where the handler partners with a therapy animal, working as a team to assist other people. So animal assisted therapy can apply to education and activities that provide an intervention or an incorporation to elevate human well-being. So basically, animal assisted therapy, as we know, is a goal-directed intervention. It is provided by human or health professionals working within the scope of their profession. It is designed to promote improvement in human physical, social, emotional, or cognitive function. You can have a variety of sessions when you're working with your animals. It could be individual, it could be a group, it could be on a farm. Key here, and you already know this, I'm sure, the process is documented and evaluated. So care farming has a lot of peer-reviewed, definitions out there. And so two that I chose, and I'm just going to read the first one. It's the use of commercial farms or agricultural landscapes as a base for promoting mental and physical health through normal farming activity. I kind of call Hillside Farms, my base, a venue. We bring the experts in, we've got the animals, we've got our staff, but then we also have the mental health professionals. So if we're looking at what's an ideal setting, you want to incorporate animals into your setting. So if you really want this to be a good experience for you, for the children or the adults you're serving, as well as the animals, you might want to focus on doing these services on smaller farms. Why? Because it's more personal. It's more manageable in terms of human safety and animal welfare. You have opportunities for interaction with the farm staff, and they are incredible resources to learn about agriculture, sustainable agriculture, and basic farm life. And the environment in a smaller farm is typically a more natural setting. Now, if there's one thing I ask you to please keep in mind throughout this entire presentation, is nothing is foolproof and no animal is bomb-proof. So I get asked a lot when I'm doing presentations and workshops. So Suzanne, like, what do the animals do? What are they supposed to do? Well, the farm animals really are not required to do anything other than be farm animals. Children participating in care farming are, in essence, they're the co-farmers while they're in the sessions. The children have the responsibility for, at least in part, providing supervised basic animal care while at the farm. And again, supervised is a key factor in successful programs. Now, sometimes the cows do join in as co-therapists, and I snapped this because this was an adult session that we were having 2 years ago, and we took a tractor ride up into the pastures and sat so we could have a session, and the next thing we knew, the cows were surrounding us. And if you've ever had this experience, you know what it's like to be in stillness outside and have these animals, if they're goat or sheep or even chickens, but in this instance, the cows, everyone just went, like you did right before we started. We were all grounded. And if you're grounded, you're more open to receive communications as well as communicate with others. So I do want to now focus the next few slides on the programs that we have at Hillside. So we were founded in 2010, and just briefly, this is all about children currently in this program, ages 16 to 14, who have suffered trauma. And trauma can mean many things, but in our case, we work with children who have had death of a family member due to illness, accident, murder, or suicide. We work with many children in foster care due to neglect or abuse. We have kiddos who have one or more incarcerated parents, a lot of kiddos with active addiction in the family. And unfortunately, these numbers just continue to grow annually. So what we do is we break up our session into two phases. The first is the stabilization phase. What happens here is really the hands-on work and the activities with the animals. And that includes mucking stalls, replacing the bedding, cleaning food, water buckets, add the food and water, all the basic stuff, bottle feeding or bucket feeding the calves, exercising, grooming the animals. And we even have an area for planting and harvesting of produce and flowers for our local farmers market. So what's the big deal about the stabilization phase? It offers routine, responsibility, and reward. And that's what the kiddos need when they're in this type of program. They need to know that they're making a difference, and they get nearly instant positive feedback. We also incorporate our therapy sessions after the farm chores, and we realize that after a few years, the individuals are more likely to be relaxed, open to communicating, and listening. We also provide value-added opportunities. So when you're doing care farming and you're working with the farm staff, whether it be with animals or whether you're working with produce, these sessions provide you with incredible opportunities for value-added stuff. And that includes basic animal science, maybe agriculture, earth sciences, animal care, animal welfare. It's an incredible opportunity to teach the source of your food and the importance of respecting the animals and the environment. Can you observe? Is observing farm animals an option? Yes, of course it is. Not everybody wants to be hands-on. They may want to be at your location, they may want to be around the animals, but not necessarily doing the hands-on daily chores. And you can learn so much about resilience and adaptability. Animals are incredible at adapting to their circumstances. Social interaction, the hierarchy of herds and flocks, instinct and intuition, the circle of life, responsibility, and caring. And the circle of life, I'll briefly share that on our farm, our animals are never sent off. Our animals live their entire lives on the farm. And that is with intent. If an animal passes, or unfortunately an animal needs to be euthanized, we keep that animal on the farm and we talk about this animal being grounded literally as part of our whole therapeutic and healing process. Reading to the animals is another option, and that's really quite popular. So now we're going to talk about considering the animal welfare piece. We know the benefits of including farm animals in our programs, but we need to take a step back and look at things from the animals' points of view. So we're just going to talk about some common attitudes regarding farm animal sentiency, discuss these animals in as it relates to how behaviors can decrease welfare for the animals and your individuals during care farming sessions. And then we're going to evaluate photos of animals in a care farming environment. I'd love to hear your feedback. So we're talking about the freedoms and domains of farm animal welfare. Many of you will find this redundant, but I still think it's important to go over. We know about the 5 freedoms. This was founded in 1965. Freedom from hunger and thirst, discomfort, pain, injury, disease, fear and distress, and the expression of normal behavior. We want the animals to express their normal behavior. From there, we went on to the 5 domains. That takes a little bit more into consideration. Yes, the animals are well fed in 1965, but are they receiving adequate nutrition? Their environment, is it an environment where they can explore their natural behavior? How is the overall health of the animal? They could be free from pain and injury and disease, but how's their health? How's their behavior? Are these animals stressed? And what is the overall mental state? And from my experience over the last 15 years, I put down some of the concerns that I have seen in several environments. And it's not neglect, it's just because we need to develop a better understanding of the animal's point of view. And you could see everything from noise levels all the way down to infectious diseases and all the way down to isolated. Are the animals isolated? Do they have no partners? Anthropomorphism. So this is a biggie because it's defined as the tendency to attribute human forms, behaviors, and emotions to non-human animals or objects. Now, sometimes anthropomorphism can be beneficial to the animals. Like here, we made Pua a special pig cake on her first anniversary at the farm. And other times, it's not necessarily in the animal's best interest to treat them like humans. So here's some examples. I comb social media to look at the messaging that's out there, and a few of these have popped up into my feed, and I just want to share these with you. So here we have Lynn Smith, the deer whisperer. And at first glance, it's like, isn't this great? He's feeding the deer, and it's all wonderful, and aren't those deer lucky? But as you go on into this gentleman's feed, you will see that he's using the corn to get the animals in his house, in his garage, up the steps to his home, and down the hall. And if you think about that, first of all, is that good animal welfare? And secondly, what's the message that we're sending to others that it's okay to do this? Another here is getting the cow into a pool and sitting down, bringing the cow into your kitchen and sharing some cereal. Okay, now maybe the cows love the cereal, but do we really want to promote putting a cow in our kitchen? Now, I loved Esther the Wonder Pig. I followed Esther from when she was this teeny tiny pig, and her story is wonderful. However, Esther lived inside of a house with a turkey and with a dog. Okay, Esther dressed up. She was this incredible ambassador. But if you look at it, and if you've ever worked with pigs, pigs generally are they're wonderful. They're so nice. They're funny, but they can get ticked off. And when you have a full-size pig charging you, it could be a very dangerous situation. So, what I'm asking you to think about is when we add anthropomorphism onto these animals, what are the message we are promoting, and is this high welfare? And that's just something for you to think about. So, perceptions and attitudes pretty much across the board until recently, farm animals are perceived as mere food animals. And in some populations and cultures, they believe that cows, chickens, goats, sheep, and poultry don't necessarily require the same level and care and respect as our popular household companions, like our dogs and our cats. So, what is sentience? Sentience refers to the ability to express emotions and sensations such as fear, pain, pleasure, and suffering. Now, the research supports that farm animals are capable of experiencing a wide range of emotions, and they do have complex social lives. And you can see some examples here. Pigs are shown to have long-term memories. They can show signs of empathy and understand cause and effect. Chickens are great. Chickens can recognize and remember individual humans and other chickens. They show emotional cognition. The emotions of one chicken can easily spread to the other chickens in the area. And our cows can form close bonds, and they actually are distressed when they're separated from their social group. So, what I'd like to do now is we're going to go over the next 3 slides one at a time. And I want to show you some examples of animal welfare during care farming sessions. This is my home farm, and these pictures are used with permission. So here we have the first one. We thought it was a great idea a few years back to get some pullets, to get pullets and raise them, and then eventually put the chickens outside so we could raise the educational flock to additional numbers. So the sessions are 8 to 9 weeks. These animals were inside of our education center. And as you can see, they've got food and there's water right over here. But if you were going to look at this photo, can you think of anything that is not in the best interest of the birds? Anybody want to shout something out?
It's a small cage.
Absolutely. The cage itself.
There's nothing for them to like perch on.
Absolutely. There are no perches. The birds need to be able to get up onto perches. That's really important for their development.
And they'll also probably bully the one that's a little bit different.
Right, exactly. And what if you wanted a timeout? If you want a timeout, you can go someplace right now. If you were overwhelmed, you could get up, you could leave the room, you can go to the back of the room, you can grab a bottle of water. These birds didn't have that. There's nowhere for these birds to go if someone was being pecked or chased. And then the one last thing that I do want to point out is that this entire area was open. So from 9 to 3:30 every day, Monday through Friday, there were kids running around. So if you could think of the intensity of what these birds experienced every day, this was an example of things as far as welfare that needed to be tweaked, and we did tweak them. The second photo here, these are our pastured hens. And we had one little boy, we pick eggs, wash eggs, get them ready for the dairy store. And this little boy was so excited because he was able to run up and he was able to catch this bird and whisk her up and just show everybody what he did. How does that bird look to you? Do you think maybe she's a little stressed?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's stressed. And if you take it a step further, how do you think she's going to react in the future when someone comes up to her? Yes. So she could be fearful. She may be aggressive, and if she is it really her fault? She was shown that if someone walks up to you or runs up to you, you're going to get swooped up, like perhaps a hawk would do or another animal would do. And so we became a danger zone for that bird. And the third is mucking. So one of the chores every day is to muck the calf stalls. So I'd like you to look at the number of children in this room. Look at the calves. And what would you do differently if you were designing this type of program?
Have one person in the stall at a time,
Mhm.
and let the cows out the other, that they come up out the other end.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. So important because this photo was taken and the gate is open. Now, does anybody think that wheelbarrow right here is going to stop one of these calves if she wanted to bolt? It wasn't going to happen. So the number of children in that stall in that pen is a lot. And then I wanted to show you, and it's kind of hard right here, but if you could see, the child in the back is wearing noise cancellation headphones. So she came to our program and she was on the spectrum. So if anything startling happened, what would that do to her? She's not coming to our care farming program to be further traumatized. So we need to take the responsibility that every one of those individuals is placed in an environment where they're going to feel safe and secure. So there's some other welfare considerations that we look at, the ambient temperatures. It could be 80 degrees and we're like, this is great, but what's the humidity level? And if it's super humid and we're having a hard time breathing, how do you think a chicken feels covered with feathers? Okay, vocalizations. Sometimes animals will vocalize more, and other times they'll shut down. We need to be responsible for knowing our animals. The locomotion. Are they running or walking more or less? Are they hiding? Are they withdrawn? Pacing, circling. And then the stereotypies. Are they doing repetitive motions? If you have an animal going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, something's going on. That animal is stressed. And then finally, panting. So what we need to do is we need to look at the stress and what it's doing to these animals. There's stress, there's eustress, and there's de-stress. And we need to look at the difference. There is good stress, but it's our responsibility to make sure that the animals are not in de-stress. So what we look at is when we are going to be selecting a species, and I said this in the beginning, is that not every animal may be a good fit for your program. You do need to review things like the temperament, socialization, willingness and agency. The animals really need to have choice. Are these animals trained? What's the overall health of the animals? Do you know the environment, the background, the history of these animals? We have in the past had rescue animals or animals that were being culled from other farms. Well, what is the background of that animal? Does that animal have triggers? Is that animal afraid of a male or a female or both? You need to know all this. So what I would recommend is if you would please consult with your large animal veterinarian, perhaps a behaviorist or other services, and look and make sure that this is indeed a good fit for your program. So I talk about what I call, I just made this up, the 5S's of animal assessment. So when you're looking to place animals in your program, I take into consideration the site, how the animals view their world. What's their field of vision, the depths, the colors? What colors do they see? Do they see 360? Do they see almost 360? Do they look up all the time? Are they looking down? Are they looking ahead? You need to take into consideration how these animals view their world. Smell, how the animals use their noses. Recognition, they can detect stress. They're incredible at that. Do they use smell for bonding? So are there smells that may trigger an animal's behavior? Sound, How do the animals listen? What are the frequencies? Are they sensitive to loud noises? Will some noise trigger a fight or a flight? Sensation. Not all animals respond the same way when you're touching them on their bodies. You're giving signals, and you need to know how animals feel and respond to a gentle touch. Is it social bonding? Are you touching the animal's whiskers? And then what message is that sending to your animals? And then finally, the fifth S is sentience. And that's the capacity to feel sensations, emotions, and consciousness, which we know our animals can do, right down to the fish in the stream. So what we do is my practical and valuable recommendations from my experience is always to have farm staff or other trained animal staff members nearby. All activities are supervised. Going back to those kids in the stall, not a good idea. I did not see one adult near those children that entire session. No solo animal interactions. Clear communication to the individuals in your program. Expected behaviors. No yelling, running, hitting, chasing, etc. Proper techniques need to be demonstrated. Bottle feeding or bucket feeding a calf. You have a hungry calf and you're holding a bottle and it's a young child and that calf is hungry, she's going to pull and she's going to pull hard and you can be face planted easily. The grooming and the farm chores, and then exercising, walking on a halter. I prefer not to use halter breaking. I prefer to use the term halter training. And then obviously know your animals so you can observe them for signs of stress, recognizing and respecting the animal signals. So a little bit about Farm Animal Behavior 101. Just know excited cows will run, kick, jump, etc. Calves are at least 75 pounds plus at birth, and they're strong. Chickens explore their world through pecking, and that includes your feet and your hands. If you have nail polish on, if you're wearing something shiny, jewelry, whatever, they're going to be attracted to that. Roosters, we say, oh, they're aggressive, they're mean, they're being protective. And pigs are powerful, and they have an equally powerful bite. And there's really no such thing as a mini pig. So what I ask you and I encourage you to do is to understand and follow that farm animals, they're not being or doing anything other than being animals. No animal is bomb-proof, and they, like humans, respond to excitement, frustration, fear, and often an animal will be culled or removed for simply responding as an animal. So what I'd like to conclude is animals are a wonderful piece of a care farming program. They can be effective and they could provide positive methods to promote improvement in the human physical, social, emotional, and cognitive function. So when you're designing your programs, please consider creating an environment with cooperation with and respect for the farm animals and each other, respect for the farm environment, acknowledging the sentience of farm animals and each other, understanding the behaviors of ourselves as well as others, accepting the natural behaviors of farm animals, and most importantly, understanding that welfare is not one-sided and we are all interconnected. And I'm happy to make this presentation available to you. I have some peer-reviewed studies that if you're interested, they're right on the screen here. And then also some QR codes if you ever want any more information, if you need any more information from me. Some of my work here published on Google Scholar, I'm on LinkedIn, and the Human Animal Network. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I want to thank you very much for your time. I appreciate this deeply. If you have any questions for me, I see that there's one in the chat. 5 minutes left. Thank you. And I just want to thank you for your time. Please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to share more of my experiences, and I would do whatever I could to help you along your journey. And thank you, Care Farming Network and Red Wiggler Care Farm. I appreciate this opportunity, and I wish you a wonderful, wonderful rest of your conference. Thank you.
Thank you. And Suzanne, I don't know if you're able to stay with us.
I am. Yes, I can stay with you. Absolutely.
Because then Jennifer is going to present, and then we'll hold all questions till the very end, and then our participants can ask either one questions.
Beautiful.
Okay, excellent. Well, our next presenter is Jennifer, and you'll have to
Zeitler.
Zeitler.
Yeah, no worries.
So she's going to get set up by Kara. So I get to sit down. My job is easy. I just have to tell people 5 minutes.
Awesome. That's perfect.
All right. I
Yeah,
think
we
that
have
should.
slides there.
That works?
Yeah, it works for me. It works for you all, right? Yeah. Awesome. Well, good morning. You're looking at a picture of our farm in just south of Buffalo, New York. Right now it's buried under about 4 feet of snow, so it doesn't look quite like that. But I am excited to be able to share how we are implementing animal-assisted interventions on our farm. And I think you'll find it helpful. I'm so glad that the presentation that went first because it took that 40,000 foot view, and where this presentation is going to take us is into a very practical ways that we're implementing this on our farm in a subclinical way. So while it allows for the push-in from the top level professionals, we want to try to figure out how do we merge where we are right now as developing care farms with this really amazing science that we know behind animal welfare and intervention, and how can we merge those in a way that's realistic for those of us that maybe don't have the budgets for that professional to push in quite yet, because we don't want to be skipping over the care for the animals until we get there. That makes sense. So my name's Jen Zeitler. I am the executive director at Open Farms. We're really well branded, but we're actually really small, and we're also very much starting up. So we've been a 501c3 for about 3 years on the property that we're at now, and we started off right away with animals. We have goats, we have donkeys, we have pigs, we have chickens, we have ducks, and we have wonderful humans that are interacting with them every day. And so we really couldn't wait for professionals to be able to push in. We had to figure out how are we going to take that occupational science and plug it into our farm right away. I'm going to tell you some boring background about me. My formal education is in occupational therapy. And I share this because there's some through lines that really ended up developing over my career that landed me kind of in the perfect perspective at the farm. I started off with doing individualized placement and support in 2004 for people who were returning to work after being disabled due to severe mental illness, and then moved into veteran services where we worked on an integrated community care model. I moved then into employee assistance programming at a professional mental health level for the last 5 or 6 years of my career, and burned right out. So I was really getting to the point where my own mental health was taking a hit. So I actually left the entire professional pseudo corporate world and started herding goats for a living. And that is kind of what brought me full circle back to Open Farms. And the reason I share that story is because I really feel like I experienced the healing that came with working with animals, having left that environment of high intensity, high professionalism, got out into the field, literally lived on a bus with the goats, not kidding, for a few summers when I realized like, oh, I'm getting better and I'm healing and I'm feeling better. And all this kind of reminds me of the work that I was doing before. And how do we pull these things in a way that's accessible for other people who don't want to quit their jobs and herd goats for a living? So that is where we moved into Open Farms. I already talked about the animals that we have. So as I mentioned, this section is really not going to be about using animals as tools. And I know that I'm using the word use and tools, but that is on purpose because I think that we are at risk sometimes of starting to see the animals as this path to human betterment. And I think that it needs to be a little bit more reciprocal in our language on our farm so that we don't risk kind of going into exploitative territory, either on the animal side or the human side. And so I'm going to challenge us to do something that we rarely do in care farming, which is to take our focus off of being person-centered, which sounds bizarre in this space, but I promise you we're going to circle back and we're going to take it off of just solely being animal-centered and couch our discussions in the tasks. Because at the end of the day, on a care farm, what we're trying to do is pull in this meaning and this occupational justice and all these beautiful things into the tasks that we're doing. And if we don't have a way to see what the tasks actually look like on our farms, that's where we can get lost in some of those other metrics. And the purpose here is because we are working with so many different types of people on our care farms. So all these are pictures from our farm in Buffalo. All of the types of groups and individuals that we have on this list are all coming to our farm right now. So it's a really broad list. And this brings a lot of challenges because how can you make the types of interactions that we're doing accessible for all these different types of people that come with all these different types of abilities and mindsets? And so why tasks? Why focus on taking a look at the work before we're looking at the animals and the people? There are some challenges anytime you get in a room with folks that are dealing with animals, that are talking about animal-assisted interventions, animal therapy. We all know the healing that happens. That's intuitive. You're here because you've either seen it, you're experienced it, or you believe there's something there. You wouldn't be sitting here learning about it, right? So we know that it's there, but there sometimes can be an ambiguity in how we're actually engaging with animals on our farm spaces. So are we doing this for enjoyment? Are we doing this for regulation of the body? Are we doing this for therapy? Are we doing this for skill building? Are we doing this as part of our care? Or are we doing all of that? When we have that kind of like just misunderstanding, or you have someone that's really firmly couched in one of those positions, all of a sudden you could be talking about the same thing and still veering off on different paths and kind of lose that communication. It becomes hard to define, and then that becomes hard to study, which is tough for funding. There are blurred lines between interaction and responsibility. So a lot of times I hear about animal-assisted interventions and therapies in relation to that interaction and the beauty of that and the healing that happens there. And I think that is like hugely important. But then we also, on a practical level, have a farm to run, right? Where we have to have these tasks completed. Things have to be cleaned. The stalls do have to be mucked, whether or not we're struggling with some abilities or some behaviors or having a difficult day. So blending those two things becomes really difficult without veering off into older science. We also have to pay attention, and we talked a little bit about this in the previous presentation, who is having who's benefiting from this experience, right? So it can feel really calming for us to interact with an animal. It might not feel so calming for them. And we need to be very deliberate about considering the experience of both parties. We also have this ethical tension. We talked a little bit in the first presentation about the animal welfare piece, but I want to focus really hard on the people piece here, because we're also talking about work, right? So in order to make this work meaningful, the work is real. We have to muck the stalls. We have to clean the pens. We have to haul hay. We have to clip hooves. We have to scoop poop. This is work. And in most other spaces, that would be paid work. So we need to be paying attention to how are we making sure that the experience is reciprocal in a way that there's benefit for the people, but that we're also not pushing into exploitation territory. And I know that's the word we hate to throw around in this space, but if we don't hit it head on, someone else is going to come confused and bring it to us anyway. So we need to be deliberately paying attention to that when we're looking at task design. And then the thing that I think we've all been struggling with in the care farming space for a long time is making sure that we can have some measured outcomes, right? So we want to be able to bring some of this back to be able to say that, yes, we can assess. We are doing what we say we're doing, and here's what we're expecting, and here are the outcomes that we're actually getting. So what we use on our farm is called the GOAT method, because, you know, I had to go there because I'm the GOAT lady. This is just on our farm. This is something we're using right now. You are welcome to take this. There will be some information shared at the end. This is something you're welcome to just have and run with. But I want to walk through kind of an overview of what each of these modalities are, and then we're going to actually walk through a task on the farm to see how we can apply this real time with our staff and our co-farmers. So the first piece is guided, and this comes from the mentorship piece. So this comes from having our co-farmers. And just to clarify, on our farm, everybody's considered a co-farmer. So I'm the executive director. I'm also a co-farmer. Our staffers are co-farmers. Right now they're unpaid staffers, but they're co-farmers. Our participants that are coming from programs are co-farmers. So everybody's on a level playing field as far as the work goes. But in this case, the guided piece, the co-farmer is operating in a mentorship space that might be staff, or it might be a very experienced co-farmer that's been with us for a while. And the idea here is that you are making sure that you are ensuring a safe and enjoyable experience for both the person and the animal, and you're making sure that the task is being honored as well, because there is a start and a beginning, a middle, and an end, and we need to make sure that the task is actually still honored as well. The occupational piece describes the idea that the activity should be meaningful. So when we talk about the comparison between care farming and occupational therapy, we all kind of throw out different terms for this: meaningful activity or something that means something to the person. That's the occupational piece in this model. And in order for a task to be considered occupational from an occupational therapy perspective, it needs to be purposeful, meaning it's real. You gotta water the chickens. It needs to be contextual, meaning that you're a part of a living system. So there's a community that you're a part of, or a farm that you're a part of, that this task matters. And it needs to be transferable, meaning that you're taking skills that you're learning there that they would apply also to other parts of our life. And then they need to be personally meaningful for the person that is involved. And those are pretty big buckets, but this method will help us make sure that we're hitting all those metrics. The adaptive piece is what it sounds like. It's making sure that all the people that on that list we talked about are able to step into the task stays the same, but the person's able to step in and out of that task. And we do that through adaptation. So that might be through using different tools. It might be that we're changing the pacing. It might be that we're changing the level of support, but we're allowing that task to stay the same. And then the tasks, again, are the discrete goal-oriented activities. They have a start, they have a finish. We know when they're done. And this is the way that we're able to actually organize, being guided, making sure that we're being occupationally meaningful, and that we're plugging in adaptations for all of our different kinds of co-farmers. So we're going to walk through an example, day in the life. We have a task that is on our list for co-farmers, and that is watering our chickens. It sounds pretty simple unless you've ever been around chickens or on a farm. It can be pretty complex. And we know that the baseline responsibilities are that we need to empty and clean the soil water containers and rinse those out, get those ready for the new water. We need to fill with clean water. We need to confirm that the chickens have access to that water that's easy for them to get to. And then we need to secure their coop or enclosure when we're done so that as we walk away from the task, safety is still in mind. So these are text heavy, and I apologize. I love the pictures, but there's a lot to pay attention to here. So we take a look at guided. We're taking a look at who is being supported and how. And in this case, it is the person and the animal. This means that we're trying to protect the animal, we're trying to protect the person, but we're also trying to protect the relationship between the two so that they can continue to work together. We know that for the guided piece that our staffers are paying attention to reading an energy. We're taking a look at, does our co-farmer understand? Is there comprehension of what we're attempting to do? And is this person feeling confident in what they're doing? Are they nervous? Are they scared? Are they apprehensive? How are we kind of assessing what the overall mood is for the day? I want to be really clear. This is subclinical. So we're not doing personal assessments on whether this person's experiencing heightened symptoms of depression or anxiety. We're strictly looking at behavior in accordance to the farm, right? And so this is what's kind of pulling it down into just a person-to-person interaction versus a clinical intervention. We want to make sure that we're adjusting our support to promote success with the task, but without taking over. And for many of us, that's really tough, especially if you know how something needs to get done and you have a certain way of doing it. It means that we have to help our staffers, our co-farmers, step back from what they think is perfect to just what needs to be done, and allowing that person to do that in a way that's optimally successful for them with minimal supports from our mentorship role. And then we want to name our achievements very honestly. So if someone is not able to complete the task, we need to be able to say that out loud and then keep working toward that. And if somebody is able to complete the task, we want to be honest in celebrating the success without over celebrating the fact that they've completed the work. We'll talk a little bit about that. That has to do with ethics, because we don't want to have someone tie in their productivity or their ability with their value in the relationship with the co-farmer or the farm, right? Because if they're not able to complete it, then all of a sudden that might get diminished, or someone might feel compelled to work when they really don't feel capable because they want the attention that comes with that. So we have to be really careful there. For the animal piece, our co-farmers in this guided section are ensuring that the animals are not overwhelmed or mishandled. They want to make sure that our enclosures are secure. So they're kind of like a third, a second eye, a second look at the overall interaction, and making sure that there's no safety hazards introduced to the animal environment. A lot of times on different farms, that's going to have to do with biosecurity as well. So making sure that we're either putting on boot covers or that somebody hasn't been at another farm washing hands, things like that. And what does that look like? So we, our co-farmers are always making sure that we demonstrate the task at least once. And so that allows the person to set some expectations. And so what that often looks like is just walking alongside our co-farmer that's doing the mentoring, getting really detailed about what they're doing. They are making sure that they're describing what done looks like. So for a lot of us, when we're entering a task, done is the goal, right? So we want to feel really accomplished when we get there, which means we have to know when we get there. And then they're inviting people to participate versus here's what has to get done, off you go, right? They're saying, here, this is how we do it. This is what I'm doing. This is when it's finished. Would you like to join me tomorrow in this task? And there you have the invitation piece. What that can look like very literally, a lot of times you're going to have some I call it like bumper bowling, where you might be doing a task and kind of bumping up to the limits of that task. So if somebody's overfilling a water bucket, you're not jumping in and taking the water or saying, oh, no, stop that. You can simply reiterate what you're trying to do. So, hey, you know what? We stop adding water when it's full and we just make sure that it's level. Because at the end of the day, overfilling a water bucket's not the end of the world. If it was a safety measure, that might be a different reaction. We might have animals that are becoming stressed. Chickens are notorious for just being really excited about shiny objects and fresh water. It doesn't mean that they are super thirsty or super hungry. It's just been presented to them. And you may have 25 chickens come and rush that water bucket. And that can be really overwhelming for the person. And you're risking stepping on animals. In that case, the mentor may say something like, oh, hey, you know what? If they're crowding, let's just take a step back. You and I are just going to chill. We're going to let them get over the novelty, space back out, and then we can finish the task. So it's really about clarity and encouragement rather than trying to correct or really demand or command how the task is going to be completed. When we're taking a look at that occupational piece, real time, I think it's important to try to make sure that we can pull this into practical steps on the farm, because this can get a little academic and a little sciencey sometimes. And really the question we're trying to answer with the O is, why does this work matter, both to the farm and to the person, and then in this case also for the animal. So when we're taking a look at human outcomes, we want to make sure that we're allowing agency for the person that's doing the task. We want to make sure that the task is oriented in a way that there is some responsibility and follow through, meaning that if we don't clean these water buckets and refill them, then the chickens don't have clean water. That's a real accountability issue right there. And then we want to take a look at, are we developing routines? Because we know in a care farming environment, in the way that we orient psychology, routine is a really great support for so many different modalities. And then in the animal context, we want to make sure that we're allowing opportunities for feedback in real time. It's pretty easy to do on a farm, because if you run into a space and the chickens scatter, that's feedback. I now know how I need to adjust my approach, adjust my pacing, adjust my body. And what's cool about animal feedback versus human feedback is that it's typically without judgment. There's a way to remove the judgment piece of it. If I came into this room and I was really very big and you all just turned away and didn't want to look at me, I might feel very judged. It's a personal piece. If I run into a coop and the chickens are running because chickens run away because they're scared, but I don't feel personally judged. Now I can adjust my behavior and not adjust who I am. Does that make sense? So that's the piece there for the animal context. For real world tasks, we want to make sure that they're not invented for engagement. I don't care who you are, what your level of cognitive engagement is, what your experience is. We know when something's real as human beings. We know when we're helping versus being asked to do something as a fluff or, feel patronized by an engagement piece. So we want to make sure that the effort is real and on the farm. For our farm managers, this is really helpful too, because at the end of the day, the work has to get done. We want to make sure when we're dealing with animals that the matter also efforts to the animals, the farm, and the farm community, and how that links back to occupational is just that that's a living system that our people can feel a part of. And we want to make sure that the purpose within the person doing the task is also there. So that's what anchors our mobility, our motivation. Okay, great. And dignity. So we want to make sure that there's transferable skills. So we've got, with the chickens, we're planning, sequencing, follow through, problem solving. All these things can go back to all the other areas of their life. I'm going to be light on the task piece here because we kind of reviewed why we're couching it here. Feel free to take a picture. But this is where the I'm not even on tests. I'm on adaptations. We're not going to be super light. I'm going to take my remaining time to get intensive here. So when we're adapting for the task. We're not adapting the person. So we're taking a look at tools. We're taking a look at the environment. On our farm, we have a lot of visual aids and signage. Those also have a lot of pictorial representations. We're moving into a Braille system as well for our visual aid farmers. And we also make sure that we're structuring routines and task chunking. So if you have a task that a person's overwhelmed by and it's watering and it needs to be done by 2, you may be doing that in small sections over a period of a few hours versus giving up on the task altogether or saying this person can't do this. With animal integration, we talked about this a little bit earlier. We can choose calmer animals for different interactions and different people. And then the one thing that we really focus on hard is the controlled interaction zone. So we want to make sure that we have animals in spaces where we can interact with them safely, but that they always have a path to retreat at any time. And then the idea of adaptation, a lot of times we want to think about this ahead of time, design ahead of time, and that's really important. Your signage, your tools, your spaces, but you also have to be able to adapt real time. So you have to be able to have co-farmers who have gone through some level of experience to realize like, oh, you know what? We're going to take a break. We're going to reset. Hey, and you might have some keywords here, which is how we handle it. Is it time for a water break? Is it time for a set and reset? So that those are terms that the person knows they can opt out at any time. I'm going over on time, so we're going to rush through tasks. All this will be available to you after the presentation. But the most important thing is that we have defined start and finish and observable completion, and that we're making sure that we include choice within that structure and that we're remaining ethical in how we approach unremunerated work. And what's the matter? You good?
For the microphone.
Ah, very good. She's going to pull the mic and start she's going to get the hook out, I think. We already talked about animal welfare in the previous presentation. I'm going to skip it. But I do want to take my remaining moment to talk about a call to accountability. I recommend anybody that feels like they're bumping into some work/ethics considerations to look up the term occupational justice. This is couched within occupational therapy science, but it's really extremely broad, and it has a lot of tools that can help us make sure that we are addressing these concerns proactively so that we protect our field as we grow and expand and are going out into the world, so that as people come to us with questions about this, we can give them some answers that they understand and really protect the fact that we are going to be taking care of our people and our animals. This is a QR code that is going to right now take you to a page that you should bookmark. I realize that there is a whole ton of information that I can't include in 20 minutes, as you can see. Right now, it's going to take you to a landing page. Bookmark that. By next week, we'll upload our GOAT method information. We'll give you the white paper behind it. We'll let you know the research that's happening this summer with Rutgers and University of Buffalo. We'll give you the signage that we use around our farm and all the different ways that we adapt our tasks so that you can take those and kind of run with them on your farm. And then we'll also include an assessment tool so that you can walk with your co-farmers and make sure that the GOAT method is actually being followed. And again, this is not a clinical method. So you can do this on your farm right now. It's just design. It's just design. It's designing your tasks for these things in mind. So that will take you there. I'm going to try to be quiet now and let Jamie take it back over.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. We have a 5-minute question. And then we've got 30-minute break, or if you want to go to the exhibitors hall. And again, both of the speakers said that they would be available for questions if we don't get to the
Well, the
questions.
question I have about the dairy farm, do they actually make a profit? It's a not for profit. But if they've got 400 acres and how many ever cows do they have to make a profit?
Is that a question?
Yeah.
For
Yes. Does it mean that they have to make a profit? Yeah. Or if they don't, where does the money go?
yeah, working with animals. That might be a good question to email her if you don't mind, because we just have a few minutes. We could ask just about the animals, not about revenue streams.
You got one behind you, Jamie.
I was wondering if either of you could share like specific ways of designing interactions between people and animals, like specific activities or tasks that you have found to be really meaningful.
Did you hear that question, Suzanne?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's for me. I couldn't tell. I
It's
apologize.
it's for both. So maybe Jen, you want to start, and then
Okay.
Suzanne.
Is one that we really find that people gravitate toward, and it sounds kind of counterintuitive because it's scooping poop and it's gross, but what we try to do to pull in agency is it's not mucking stall, it is mucking stall, but what you're really doing is creating a clean, safe space for an animal to sleep or be in. So when you're pulling in, like, oh my gosh, like Diesel can now go in here and lay down. He seems so much more comfortable. Now his feet are not stuck in the mud, like you're pulling in the meaning piece there. So this is also a really easy one to adapt. So you can use the different types of tools that you need to use. You can remove the animals from the stall or have them sort of accessible. We use a lot of half doors so that there's animal engagement without being in the animal space and allowing them to kind of come and go. So I feel like mucking stalls is probably my favorite when you take a look at different kinds of methods.
Anything to add, Suzanne?
Sure. Yeah, mucking stalls. I second that. That's just it's like a big Zen garden. It's just fantastic. One of the things that we do also is It's a hands-off activity with the animals, but we get animals that we know have stories. And again, this goes back to some of our rescue animals, and we have the children in 3 groups, depending on how many kids we have. We share the story of that animal. One of our donkeys, Dandy, has incredible separation anxiety, and I'll just give you this example quickly. And we have the individuals in the groups think of ways that maybe what could they suggest? What could they do to help Dandy? And they get 10 to 12 minutes to come up with their ideas, and then we share. And what we're finding out is the children usually share what works for them. So for Dandy, in this case, we've heard everything from movies to a strawberry Pop-Tart to speaking softly to Dandy. And so what these kids are doing is, in this circumstance, yes, they're working with the animals in a hands-off situation, but they're coming up with ideas and brainstorming as teams, and then they're sharing and, in effect, helping each other.
All right, we have time for one more question. All right, got you back up.
Hi, mine's a little specific. I'm really interested in the activity with reading to the animals and how you make that more, I don't know, how it works better. What are the kids feeling they're getting out of it? Does this help the animals at all? How do you make it a more meaningful experience?
We make it more meaningful. The kiddos are allowed to go to our little kids library, which is just a couple stacks of books, and they can pick a book. And these are the kids who want to be with the animals, but not necessarily want to have hands, the time. And this would come after with the therapy sessions, because again, these kids are here for 6.5 hours a day on the farm. So it is their downtime. It is their time also after one of their therapy sessions to talk to the animals. We have children who don't read, who have trouble reading, who maybe are too young. But we had one kiddo who was in foster care holding this book, and the book was in front of his face, and he was sharing with the sheep what was going on in his life. So this child was not comfortable talking in a group setting or one-on-one with our therapists, but was able to share what was going on in his life to the sheep. And we found that just priceless because, again, opening up and processing the feelings.
Right, y'all, I want to get you out of here on time. I think it's okay. I'm looking at Eric. Can they take a picture? I opened up this page where emails are. So if you had a question that wasn't answered, feel free to come up and take a picture. It has Suzanne's email, it has Jennifer's email. So please be in touch. And I know you'll get a ton of resources, and thank you so much, all, for attending the session.
Thank you, Suzanne, for calling in.
Thank you so much. This was a pleasure. And I got to tell you, we couldn't do it without our occupational therapists. They are the rock stars of our programs.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll be
Bye-bye.
in touch. Bye-bye.